1905, Paul P. Harris and three friends came together in a Chicago office, and Rotary Fellowship was born. Little did they know on that historic night that Rotary would grow to an association of tens of thousands of clubs in over 85% of the world's countries. Nor could they envision that Rotary would quickly become a global force for good, bringing hope for a brighter future to millions of people around the world. Rotary's commitment to service began in 1907 with the construction of Chicago's first public comfort stations. With this inaugural project, the Rotary Club of Chicago became the world's first service club organization. Thanks to the vision and untiring efforts of founder Paul Harris, the Rotary ideal of service soon swept the world. By 1921, Rotary clubs had been formed on every continent, with the number reaching 1,000 by year's end. An endowment fund for doing good in the world was created in 1917. This fund was the forerunner of the Rotary Foundation, which today is one of the world's largest charitable foundations. Its visionary educational and humanitarian programs provide the best means of achieving the world betterment and peace that are the ideals of every Rotarian. Even in these earliest decades, Rotary was so respected that it drew presidents, prime ministers, and other luminaries to its ranks. People like composer Jan Sibelius, humanitarian Albert Schweitzer, author Thomas Mann, and diplomat Carlos P. Romulo. As Rotary grew, it also expanded its mission. The association's commitment to high ethical standards was first articulated in 1932 by Rotarian Herbert J. Taylor. This code of ethics was later adopted by Rotary as the four-way test. In the early 1940s, Rotary vaulted onto the world stage when British Rotarians hosted a Rotary conference to promote international cultural and educational exchanges. The intellectual seeds planted at this conference inspired the establishment of the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO. Rotary also played a significant role in the birth of the United Nations itself, with 50 Rotarians specifically invited to serve as delegates, advisors, and consultants at the UN Charter Conference in 1945. After Paul Harris's death in 1947, the outpouring of Rotarian donations in his name made the Rotary Foundation a reality. The first foundation program, now known as Ambassadorial Scholarships, is today the world's largest privately funded international scholarship program. With pioneering programs like Health, Hunger, and Humanity grants, group study exchange, and matching grants, the Rotary Foundation expanded its efforts for humanitarian service and international understanding throughout the 1960s and 70s. At the same time, RI was strengthening its commitment to youth with the inauguration of Interact, Rotaract, and RILA, as well as designating Youth Exchange as an official Rotary program. In the 1980s, Rotary continued to develop and expand its programs. The Rotary Community Corps, first known as the Rotary Village Corps, was created to spur economic development and self-sufficiency in both rural and urban communities. And the World Community Service Program, begun in the 1960s, grew considerably as Rotarians became increasingly involved in international service. 1985 witnessed the start of one of the most preeminent international service efforts in Rotary's history. The Polio Plus program was inaugurated to fulfill Rotary's historic commitment to immunize all the world's children against polio. Rotary is the largest private sector partner in the global campaign to rid the world of this crippling disease. With over $500 million committed by Rotary International and countless Rotarian volunteers mobilized in the fight, the incidence of polio has declined dramatically. More than 99% of the world is now polio-free. The eventual declaration of a world completely free of polio will be Rotary's proud and lasting legacy to the children of the world. Polio Plus wasn't the only milestone in the 1980s. Late in that decade, Rotary was open to female membership, and the first clubs in Eastern Europe rejoined Rotary after an absence of almost 50 years. In the 1990s, Rotary addressed important global issues. Environmental protection was the focus of the Preserve Planet Earth service opportunity, while literacy, aging, drug abuse prevention, disaster relief, and family issues were afforded special emphases during those years. Another dream, long nurtured by Rotarians, is finally being realized with the creation of the Rotary Centers for International Studies in Peace and Conflict Resolution. Begun in the 2002-2003 academic year, 8 universities around the world partnered with the Rotary Foundation to establish master's degree level programs in fields related to conflict resolution. These include peace studies, diplomacy, mediation, and international relations, as well as post-conflict economic development. Through this program, the Rotary Foundation annually sponsors up to 140 scholars, continually providing new generations of negotiators and mediators who are dedicated to world peace. Today, billions of children are growing up without the threat of crippling disease and hunger, and thousands of communities worldwide enjoy clean water, sanitation, health care, and education, all thanks to Rotary's history of compassion and commitment. In many parts of the world, impoverished families now live in well-built, safe dwellings provided by Rotary clubs. Destitute men and women use Rotary-sponsored microcredit to become self-sustaining entrepreneurs. And children worldwide feel a newfound sense of hope because they see that Rotarians care about their plight. Working together, Rotarians will continue to assure that what has been accomplished in its first century of service is not only Rotary's history, but its legacy to the future.
Soon after Rotary began in Chicago, it spread to both coasts and quickly crossed borders and oceans. In 1911 through 1913, clubs were formed in Canada, Great Britain, and Ireland. World War I and the Great Depression slowed growth, but the numbers began to rise again in 1935. By the end of the decade, there were over 200,000 Rotarians. In Michigan, Detroit was the first club, and number 15 overall, when it was founded in 1910, only 5 years after the start of the Chicago Club. Grand Rapids formed in 1913, and Saginaw organized as the 93rd Rotary Club in 1914. Bay City followed in 1915, Flint in 1916, and Midland in 1920. In our local area, Carroll, Cass City, Owasso, Bad Axe, Pigeon, and Vassar all had clubs before Frankenmuth. In the late 1930s, some members of the Vassar Rotary Club, notably Dr. E.C. Swanson and Norman Wigley, began encouraging local businessmen, including Ruin Fisher and Carl Sato, to consider the possibility of starting a club in Frankenmuth. At a meeting on March 3, 1939, attended by 23 local business and professional men, it was decided to form a Rotary Club in Frankenmuth and to apply for membership to Rotary International. These men included President Arnold Nichterlein, Vice President Dr. Fred Brender, and Secretary Carl Sato. Dr. August Engel, Elmer Fisher, Ruin Fisher, Butch Freidinger, William Gallagher, Rocky Hubinger, Reuben Kern, Dr. Clem Kirkgeorge, Reverend August Kerberg, Lawrence List, Carl Nichterlein, Richard Rommel, Leo Sutton, Herbert Schluckbier, Dr. George Schmidt, Otto Trinklein, G.W. Trinklein, Arthur Umbach, Albert Zender, and Fred Zender. The charter from Rotary International for the new Rotary Club of Frankenmuth was presented by the district governor on April 21, 1939, at a celebration at the Herman Fisher Hotel, attended by over 510 Rotarians and guests representing 60 clubs. By this time, there were over 4,400 clubs in existence worldwide. The Frankenmuth Club, in turn, has sponsored new clubs in Chesaning, Reese, and Birch Run. Community service has always been a high priority for the Frankenmuth Club. Within its first year, the club voted to support the high school band, sponsored a drum and bugle corps, and invited the community to the presentation of a travelogue film. It developed an ice skating pond and staged its first winter ice carnival, which was a huge success and continued annually for a number of years. During World War II, scrap drives organized by Rotary were important activities that involved a lot of work for Rotarians. Funds raised through the drives were used after the war to help develop Memorial Park and the outdoor swimming pool. For many years, the club sponsored a big community event each year. These included homecoming celebrations, talent shows, horse shows in Hubinger's Grove, and chicken barbecues. The club has been the primary supporter of the scouting movement in Frankenmuth, being only 4 years old when the charter for Boy Scout Troop number 55 was presented at a Rotary Club meeting in 1943. Years later, in 1966, after local scouting had expanded to include explorers, Cub Scouts, Girl Scouts, and Brownies, Rotary would construct the Scout Building with some of the funds raised through loans guaranteed by individual members. This permitted the gathering together of scouting activities and equipment from many scattered locations, and the building project won a special award from Rotary International. Within the last 5 years, the club has expanded and renovated the Scout Building at a cost of about $100,000. The building continues to experience heavy use by local scouts and groups from out of town. Frankenmuth Rotarians have always been known to enjoy a good time. In the early years, annual stag picnics were held at the Church Grove or at Scharer's Woods, and featured softball games that often resulted in more minor injuries than runs. Fishing trips on Saginaw Bay were conducted for a number of years, and stories still circulate about some of the practical jokes played on various participants. An annual bus trip to see the Tigers play was one of the most popular recreational events and continued for many years. Raft excursions on the Cass River also were enjoyed using the combined pontoon boats of several Rotarians. Friendly rivalries developed in softball with the Lions Club and in annual tugs of war across the Cass River with the JCs. As part of the celebration of the 125th birthday of the community in 1970, Rotary took on the task of raising funds to purchase the former Kern Hotel, later the Frankenmuth News Building, for use as the Frankenmuth Historical Museum. At the same time, they took the initiative for the formation of the Greater Frankenmuth Area Community Foundation. In the early 90s, Rotary provided the local matching funds for the state grant that built the Riverwalk in Heritage Park, as well as paving the parking lot and constructing 2 pavilions and other improvements. Rotary's permanent presence in Heritage Park goes back to the construction of the Rotary Bakery building, where for many years pretzels were mixed, rolled, and baked for festival events, and local housewives came in to bake bread for sale to the festival attendees. The building continues to serve as the bakery for the pretzels that are sold in the park and along the route of the Bavarian Festival Parade. The club has a tradition of producing prize-winning floats for the parade. Each year, the Rotary Club provides college scholarships to deserving graduates of Frankenmuth High School in memory of early members Al Zink and Al Rodimer. Rotary has always been dedicated to serving the young people of the community. Over the years, they have sponsored pizza parties, teen dances, and Halloween parties. These have evolved into the annual Rotary Halloween Bonfire, where cider and donuts are served to the youngsters after they have completed their trick-or-treat visits. Service projects of the club are not restricted to the local community, but extend internationally. Over the last few years, the club has furnished funds to rehabilitate a girls' primary school and to provide supplies to another school in India. Funded a project in South Africa to provide subsistence feeding for children who have been orphaned by the AIDS epidemic. Provided a safe water supply system to a slum area of 20,000 residents in India. Funded new equipment for a dental clinic in Brazil. Promoted literacy in Haiti. And supplied vision and hearing testing equipment for a new community center in India. The internationality of Rotary is underscored by the number of exchange visitors that have touched the Frankenmuth Club. Over the years, we have had high school exchange students, experiment and international living students, university scholars, and group study exchange teams from all over the world spend time with Frankenmuth host families. In turn, the Frankenmuth Club has sponsored exchange students, university scholars, and group study exchange team members that have traveled to many countries to promote Rotary's goal of fostering world understanding and peace. The Frankenmuth Club has been outstanding in its support of Rotary International's Polio Plus campaign to eliminate polio from the face of the earth. In the initial fundraising in 1987, and in the drive over the last 3 years to raise additional funds needed to complete the effort, the Frankenmuth Club has been the pace setter for the clubs in District 6310. As part of the celebration of Rotary's 100th birthday this year, clubs around the world are taking on centennial projects to commemorate the anniversary. After spending nearly a year seeking community input and studying local needs, the club decided to spearhead the construction of a large permanent pavilion building in Heritage Park to serve family reunions, sporting events, festivals, shows, and much more. The nearly $2 million cost of the project will be funded by Frankenmuth Rotary, area businesses and foundations, with matching funds provided by Frankenmuth Mutual Insurance Company, other civic organizations, individuals, and the city of Frankenmuth. It will be named the Harvey Kern Community Pavilion, after Harvey E. Kern, a Rotarian of 34 years standing and retired chief executive of Frankenmuth Mutual. Frankenmuth Rotary Club is proud of what it has been able to accomplish in the 2/3 of Rotary's first century that it has existed. And with the continued support of the community, it will be able to serve for many years into the future. Today, Rotary International membership tops 1.2 million, with clubs in 166 countries, including the newest Rotary countries of Afghanistan, the United Arab Emirates, and Timor. Where does Rotary go from here? Wherever clubs can function freely as non-political entities of an international organization, Rotary will find new opportunities to expand its humanitarian service and build bridges of understanding.